It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today, Paul Gillespie, a photojournalist for the Capital Gazette newspaper. Full disclosure, I once worked with Paul and the other photojournalist and journalist at the Capital Gazette. We know each other well. Thank you for joining me today, Paul.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. You're working on a project called Journalists Matter.
Yes.
And we're going to get into that in a minute, but under the assumption that some people in the world might not know who you are, which I find hard to believe, or what happened on June 28th, 2018, we're going to go back over that biographical information first.
Great.
Tell me where you grew up.
I grew up in South Jersey, in Atlantic City area, Margate, Ventnor, around there.
Beautiful area.
Yeah, it was great. It was go to the beach a lot, hang out with my friends, stuff like that.
And good food, and you still go back for the food.
I go back for the food all the time. I could go back, eat a sub, and then turn around and come back and be perfectly happy.
You grew up with who?
I grew up with my mom, my dad. They had divorced when I was at 4, but and then my brother and my grandma.
Mom and Dad were in close contact. Did you stay in touch with Dad?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I obviously lived with my mom until I was 18, and then my dad lived close by, and so we would always, hang out and do stuff together.
Mom, I met not too long before she died while she was here in Annapolis.
Great.
I met her at the Navy Stadium, as you might recall.
Oh, okay.
Was that a Ravens practice? I don't even remember.
It must have been, yeah. It must have been a Ravens practice, yeah. Ma used to come on. She lived in the Virgin Islands for probably over 20 years before, she died. And in the last, probably 10 years of her life, she would come up every summer and just stay with us for like 3 or 4 months. So it was great having her there.
A big support system for you.
Yeah, they were very important to me, It wasn't a big family, but they were always there for me for whatever I needed.
Mom is no longer around.
My mom passed away in 2014. My dad passed away in 2008. And my brother passed away in 2017, I think it was.
And your brother, you've often your mom had cancer, yes?
Yes.
Your brother, you often talk about because we're in the midst of an epidemic in the United States, yeah?
My brother struggled with an opioid addiction, yes. Mm-hmm. And while I haven't called for the final results because I really don't need to know what killed him, I got to believe it was the opioids. He had lived with my wife and I in our home here in Maryland for probably over a decade. And, just so I could take care of him and make sure he wasn't on the streets or anything. So, and it broke my heart when he passed away because he was, other than my wife, my best friend. Yeah,
you've had a lot of loss in your life.
Sure.
And you're pretty dependent on your wife, is Jennifer, who
yes.
I know because we've worked together in a different media entity. You have a small family now. You have a small group of friends now that are your family.
I'm basically an orphan. I have no family left other than my wife and my Capital Gazette family because I consider all them family. And I spend probably more time with them than almost anybody.
Had you gone through any sort of professional help after your brother passed away or even after your mother passed away?
I talked to somebody a couple times after my brother passed away, and it helped a little bit, but it was like through an employee assistance program, so you got like 5 sessions, and then, I just have a way of dealing with things. I usually just try to like push through and deal with it on my own, and a lot of things you can't deal with on your own. You need to get help, so, I got a little bit of help, but then I just, stuffed it down and plowed through.
When did you decide you wanted to become a photojournalist?
A photojournalist?
When was the first time you held a camera? What was the first photograph you took?
I think I had a camera when I was a kid, like one of them Fisher-Price cameras. I don't know. I can't remember it exactly, but I kind of have a recollection of that. But when I was 21, I took a friend of mine to pick up her college portraits, and this is back in the early 90s, I guess, and she had paid this photographer $300 and she got 6 proof pictures, not even counting, whatever she wanted to order.
Which was good money.
Yeah, and I was like, you paid how much for that? And I was like, I want to become a photographer. You get to take pictures of pretty girls and make a lot of money, Little did I know, it wasn't going to, it's not
work like that, yeah.
So my birthday was right around the corner. I went out and bought I took my birthday money and bought a camera, film camera, and started taking pictures.
Film cameras.
Yeah.
Do you remember film cameras?
Oh, I spent a lot of time with film cameras.
You and me both, yeah.
Changing to digital. I bought my first digital camera in 2000, And it was
Were you reluctant?
I wasn't reluctant. I was reluctant because I spent $13,000 going digital out of my own pocket. It was like making a car payment every month, and then I basically moved here and started using it for a staff job.
Yeah.
You know, where I still paid for it. Like I bought it when I was a freelancer. It made being a freelancer a lot easier for me.
Because you had the equipment,
Yeah.
right? Did you go to school for photojournalism?
I had a couple classes at a community college in Atlantic County, New Jersey, where I learned to take pictures and stuff. It wasn't a journalism. It was just to learn how to take pictures.
But on the job experience you also had up in that neck of the woods, right?
Yes, I got my first staff job. I think it was in 1997 at a group of weekly papers called the Current newspapers in Atlantic County. We covered there was like 5 different weeklies covering a bunch of different towns, and they worked you hard. I mean, I think there was 10 assignment days, you know, where you would just go for 12 hours a day running, but it wasn't a daily, and it was, you know, I didn't have to turn them around that day. So,
right.
But I was shooting film, so you know, you had to go get the film developed, and you would scan it because it wasn't all it wasn't all straight film, but yeah, so that kept me busy, and then I wound up leaving that job to freelance for the Atlantic City Press for a couple of years, and then eventually I came down here in 2000.
All right.
October 2000.
I'm glad you are here. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio with Paul Gillespie, a photojournalist for the Capital Gazette newspaper. What was your schedule supposed to have been on June 28th, 2018? Our big story of the day in Annapolis was supposed to have been on that day, the indoctrination day at the U.S. Naval Academy.
I went to Glen Burnie to photograph a story with I guess he was a public works guy, about a storm drain that they were redoing. And I went up there and I photographed it, and I came back to our office at Bestgate Road and edited those photographs and did the video I shot that day. And I was scheduled to shoot the oath of office at the Naval Academy later that evening. And so I was sitting at my desk, and I went back to look at the archive pictures because I've shot that a lot, and I want to see what I did before. And that's when all the trouble started.
Where were you?
I was in the photo department at
looking at your archive.
Looking at my computer screen, sitting at my desk, yeah.
And that's where all the trouble started. Tell me about the trouble that started.
Well, I mean, not to get too deep into it, but you know, I heard a loud gunshot, and then the glass shatter. I stood up, turned around, and for a split second saw a shape. I mean, I have my reading glasses on, so I couldn't, you know, clearly see what was happening, but I got the gist. And I dove under my coworker's desk because it was not facing the door, and that's where I stayed until I was able to make a run for the door. Eventually, after what happened was happening.
Is it okay if I read what's on the journalistmatter.com website?
Sure.
On June 28th, 2018, my life and the lives of my Capital Gazette newspaper colleagues, really my family members, changed forever. A man armed with a shotgun blasted his way into our newsroom, murdering anyone he could see. I dove under my desk, and by the grace of God, he did not see me. As he murdered people around me at first, I thought, this can't really be happening, but it was. Then I thought, I can't believe I'm going to die. During a lull in the shooting, I left my spot and ran for the door he came through and had to make my way through the horrors in front of me. He chased and shot at me, just missing my head. I got out. I survived, but 5 of my Capital Gazette family members did not. My life was spared, but changed forever.
Yes, it has.
You mentioned before you had 5 counseling appointments through your health insurance.
Yes, well, my brother passed away.
Was that still the situation after this?
Yeah, it sure could have been. I mean, the paper provided some counseling right after. The next day we went and talked to counselors, but it was like a group thing. It wasn't really, you know, it was just a brief thing. And then I think I let a little bit of time go because, again, I try to deal with things on my own and not, you know, just do the best I can. But eventually, I decided, the Annapolis Cares Foundation, they're a group of people, a bunch of therapists from around the area here got together, and they offered us counseling. Like, it was like 8 weeks of counseling for free, you know. So I started seeing one of those counselors, and it was helping me. But then it came time to, you know, that was running out. So I had to find a different counselor, which was kind of hard. But workers' comp has been paying for that. So,
Okay.
So I have been seeing somebody.
Finding counselors isn't easy.
It's not. And when you start with one that you like and then have to switch to a different one, it's hard. So I had a gap between there, and it wasn't good. So
For those that might go through this situation in the future, or traumatic situations, there's a lesson to be learned there, right? Counselors should be made available for...
They should be, and they were for us. But
still,
I've been taken pretty good care of.
At a point in time, that runs out, and if, you know, you're still going to need counseling past 5 visits.
And everybody should go to counsel. I mean, if you have a problem in your life that is emotionally, you know, counseling really does help. Some people might think that there is a stigma attached, but there isn't. There shouldn't be, you know. And
you've been very vocal about that online, on your social media. Which,
anybody that needs help should
you.
reach out to people that can help. And talking to a counselor is great because they don't know you, and they don't judge you, and they just listen, and they take some of that load off your head, you know, so you can move on, hopefully.
But one of the things you found during this, to throw your feelings into, that wasn't counseling, but that did speak to your job, was what?
Well, my project. It was late 2018, I guess, and I was having problems with PTSD and depression and anxiety real bad, even with the counseling. I might have been in one of my breaks, like where it was like 2 or 3 months where I hasn't gone to counseling. It might have been in that time where I was trying to find a new counselor. I think it was. But a friend of mine told me about this documentary on a British photographer named Platon, and so I watched it, and I was like, oh, I could do that. Maybe not as well as Platon. Because
was Platon doing portraits?
Oh, he does portraits of like famous celebrities and stuff. He's got a lot of, he's always on the cover of Time magazine and stuff like that.
And was he doing it for healing?
No, he was doing it just because that's what he does.
But you saw a way that this might help you, yeah.
All my days off were the hardest because I would be alone in my house and have nothing to do, and I'd be really depressed and anxious and stuff like that. So I wanted to try to find something that would help me fill that time, and these portraits became a way to do that. It just started off for something to do in my time off. So I cleaned out the room that my brother had been living in, you know, in our basement, and I made it into a small studio, and I try to think of who I could photograph, and the people that I know the most are my Capital Gazette family, you know. So I started asking them if they wanted to just come over and get their pictures done for no reason, you know, just to do some pictures.
You said I wanted to show, and this is on your journalistmatter.com website, I wanted to show our Capital Gazette journalists who continue to put out the paper in the tough days after the shooting, both old and newer journalists, but I also wanted to represent those we had lost. I wanted to get family members of those killed to sit for those who could not. All of these portraits are in black and white. Does that speak to your mood?
They are all. Well, they were shot in color, and then I converted them to black and white because that's how I wanted to present them, and that's the way that, like, Platon's photographs were, and I really was like the look of them.
Yeah.
Mine have taken on a life of their own, or not. You know, his look a lot different than mine, which is good because that, you know, you don't want to copy somebody. You know, you want to just take inspiration from them. And so the black and white, you know, that also was helpful for me because it would give me something to do during the evenings, you know, where I could just sit in front of a computer for a few hours and, you know, edit and tone these photographs and make them the way I want.
And that's a big deal, and that takes forever. I know this takes a long time. The lighting takes forever, but thereafter the post-processing, getting it right.
And I think, you know, it came out pretty well. I mean, they started coming out well. I first photographed Celine Sanfelice. She's a reporter at the paper. She came over, and her pictures turned out dynamite. And after each one, I would, like, post them to social media, and then people would start raving about them, which also feels good. You know, everybody loves to get their...
Was it Lauren? You photographed Lauren?
I did.
Lauren's photograph to me is just amazing.
Yeah.
They're all amazing, but Lauren's photograph, the eyes, I don't know.
There's a different look in my pictures from depending on who the people are, because the people that were either there during the tragic events that happened, or worked with the people we lost and covered the story that weren't there, you know, that we all have a different look to us than the people that started afterwards.
Right.
I mean, the folks that started afterwards, they don't have the same, you know, tragedy in their lives that we have. So you can see it in the pictures. And Lauren was, you know, Lauren's came out great. A lot of, I mean, they're all pretty spectacular. But like if you look through the work, you can tell.
You can see the pain. You absolutely, Rachel. There's no doubt. Celine, no doubt. You can see the Josh.
You can
no
tell
doubt.
who was who basically worked there
when it
happened.
All right, let's take another short break. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Paul Gillespie. We're talking about his Journalist Matter project. It's journalistmatter.com on the internet. In order to stage a show for this project, Paul has asked for help from the community, and this journalistmatter.com has a way to help with him with that. He originally had a $17,500 goal. He's passed that, but I think there's more he's wanted to do. Yes?
Well, I mean, everyone's been so great. I didn't want to do a GoFundMe in the beginning because I didn't want to ask for help. Asking for help is hard.
I get it.
But I did it, and my original goal was $8,000 just to do the show. But then I hit that in a day because everybody in, I would say the world, like at least the United States, they all want to do something, and they all helped me greatly. So I surpassed that goal, and I started thinking, what else can I do? I'm hoping to do a book. I'm hoping to travel with the exhibit and talk about it and stuff like that. So, everyone's been real great. So
every little bit matters.
It does. It all helps now, and it's expensive to do it, like just to get these printed, because I'm printing big, real big prints, and the framing and just the glass for the frames costs a lot of money if you want to do it right.
And you're not even mentioning the time you've put into it.
No, I'm not counting my time. It's just a lot of work. It's become, shooting the portraits helped a lot with my problems. But putting on this show has also brought back some of my anxiety, and so I'm working through that.
The show, by the way, opens the big show here in Annapolis opens October 6th. It goes from 5 to 8 p.m. and it's at ArtFarm Studios. The opening reception. It will continue after the opening for how many weeks?
Probably the rest of October, maybe. It's probably going to come down in November. But there's going to be other shows in the works to show it around here. I think we might be doing something at the Anne Arundel Community College in one of their galleries coming up, and also a DC, the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. I believe they want to do something. And I couldn't have done it without the help of people like Sonia at Severin Graphics, who they're really giving me a great, they're printing and framing it for me at their cost, which has really helped, and then also April Nyman at the Arts Council of Anne Arundel County has been great. Not to mention Allie Harbaugh at ArtFarm, she's taken on the role of producer for the opening exhibit.
Allison also has a connection to our past at the Capitol. She worked at the Capitol. She was a
photojournalist with us at the Capitol for a time in the 2000s.
Who else do you want to thank? Because there's a lot of people involved in this.
Just all the GoFundMe people. They've been incredible. Thank you to everybody. Annapolis. I'm so lucky to get to work here in Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, because they really, after this tragedy, they really came out and showed their support for the Capitol and us journalists. And they made us journalists feel like we matter, because they just are remarkable, and they've all been wanting to help. And everywhere I go, even today, people are just very warm and open to wanting to express their sorrow and tell us that journalists matter. Journalism does matter, but journalism doesn't happen without the journalists. And people need to realize that we are just your neighbor. We're your neighbors, your family. We're regular people out there trying to do the best job we can to tell the truth and to spread, share the stories of our communities.
Paul, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Donna. It's been a pleasure.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We'll see you next week.